There's a certain kind of pain that comes with betrayal. It's not just emotional, it's physical, like a slow burning fire in your chest, gnawing at your soul, eating you alive. The heart, once full of love, becomes a battleground. What happens when the man you trust, the one you give everything to, shatters you beyond repair? This is the story of Jaden, a young man at the peak of his university life who thought he had everything until the world he knew was ripped apart by the one person he trusted the most. What starts as a love story ends in destruction. His love, his pain, and his rage would change everything, and the consequences were far darker than anyone could have imagined. Jaden had always been the kind of guy who put everything into the people he loved. He was the model student, focused, driven, but also caring. His girlfriend Zandile was his world. They met during their freshman year at university, an instant connection that grew into something deeper. They spent hours studying together, laughing together, dreaming together. For 2 years, Jaden thought he had found his soulmate. She was everything he'd ever wanted. Beautiful, smart, and full of ambition. They shared dreams of the future, of careers, a home, and maybe even marriage one day. Jaden couldn't have asked for a better relationship. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. Things began to change. Zandile started staying out later. At first, Jaden didn't mind. After all, university was busy, and they were both working hard toward their goals. But there were little things. Her phone always close to her, never letting him peek. Her eyes a distance sometimes, as though she was somewhere else even when they were together. The late night text messages, the constant secrecy. One evening, Jaden came home early, a surprise for Zandile, hoping to spend some time together. But when he opened the door to their apartment, the sight he saw shattered everything. There, on their bed, were Zandile and another man. The world seemed to stop in that moment. Jaden stood frozen in the doorway, watching as Zandile's eyes widened in shock, but not guilt. The man, realizing what had happened, quickly scrambled to gather his things. Jaden's heart hammered in his chest, rage and sorrow mixing in a terrifying cocktail. Zandile, too, stunned to speak, finally whispered, "Jaden, it's not what you think." But those words, they didn't matter. Nothing could fix what had just been done. In that moment, Jaden understood that everything he had given her, everything he had built with her, was a lie. She didn't just cheat on him, she had betrayed him in the worst possible way. Jaden's world unraveled faster than he could keep up. He was consumed by anger, an anger that burned so hot it seemed to swallow him whole. He tried to reason with Zandile, tried to understand why she'd done it, but she was evasive, offering nothing but weak excuses. She didn't care. She didn't care about the man who loved her. She didn't care about the trust he had placed in her. His friends tried to console him, but they could see the storm brewing inside him. Zandile, in her selfishness, has torn down the man he once was. And Jaden, he was drowning. Every break he took felt like a struggle. His thoughts were twisted, becoming darker, becoming more dangerous. The pain she caused him, the humiliation, it festered inside him. One day, Jaden found himself alone in their apartment, the weight of his emotions pressing down on him like a vice. Zandile had left again, her words still echoing in his mind, her excuses, her indifference, and just like that, something inside him snapped. When Zandile returned later that night, her face filled with annoyance at his silence, she found him waiting, calm, unmoving, his eyes locked on hers, the pain in them unbearable, yet something more, something chilling. She walked toward him, unaware that this would be her last mistake. She started to speak, but Jaden wasn't listening. In a heartbeat, everything changed. The silence was broken by the sound of his voice, cold, detached. You've taken everything from me, Zandile. Her eyes widened in confusion, but before she could react, Jaden was on her. The rage he'd been holding back for so long was unleashed in a single devastating moment. In a flurry of movement, his emotions took over and the world would never be the same again. Jaden didn't even remember how it happened. The police report later told the story of a brutal, senseless act. He had stabbed Zandile to death, like an animal. He continued to dismember her body. The head, legs, and arms were found in the freezer. The body was found inside a suitcase. As he stood over her, the weight of his actions came crashing down. The woman he loved, the woman he trusted, was gone. Jaden's life would never be the same again. He had lost Zandile, but in doing so, he had lost himself. The man who had once been full of hope, full of ambition, was now a shadow of his former self. His future, once bright, had been destroyed by the very thing he had loved the most. And as the sirens wailed in the distance, Jaden knew there was no turning back. Betrayal is a poison, and once it takes root, there's no telling what kind of darkness it can unleash. For Jaden, it cost him everything: the love of his life, his future, and ultimately, his freedom.